Night had already fallen in the large dining room of the Fire Mansion, and the atmosphere was one of intense conversation, marked by serious expressions and attentive glances. While the dishes had not yet been served, the subject insistently revolved around what had occurred in the school district. Bell tried to recount the events as best he could, but with each explanation, he felt his words become jumbled. The more he spoke, the more he realized how disconnected, incomplete, almost naive his version seemed. The feeling of inadequacy grew in his chest, accompanied by an embarrassment that was difficult to ignore. Beside him, Welf watched him with furrowed brows, clearly incredulous. Interrupting him confirmed if this had anything to do with recruitment or some kind of internship. In front, Lily kept her hands close to the table, her body leaning forward, as if she were one step away from losing her patience. The tense silence between one explanation and another made it even more evident how out of place Bell felt. At that moment, it became clear to him how much his knowledge was still limited almost exclusively to the dungeon, and how there was a whole world of rules, agreements, and interests that he was barely beginning to understand. All that remained for him was to listen, absorb, and accept the careful and sometimes harsh explanations of his companions. With patience, Welf and Lily began to detail how the familiar recruitment and faction experiment worked, making it clear that it was not something simple or trivial. These events were important pillars in the relationship between Oreo and the school district, well-established mechanisms to attract exceptional talent. Families sent representatives, displayed their achievements, their strength, and their ideals, vying for the attention of promising young people seeking a future under the blessing of the gods. For the students, it was a chance to choose more consciously. For Oreo, a way to ensure that its ranks remained strong. As he listened, Bell began to feel the real weight of that choice. Joining a family was not just a step forward, but a deep, lasting, and often irreversible commitment. It was a decision that shaped destinies. At the same time, something bothered him unexpectedly. He realized he was being treated with consideration and respect he had never imagined receiving when he arrived in Oreo with nothing, guided only by fragile dreams. That realization struck him silently. Without realizing it, without planning, he had crossed an invisible line and was now part of a privileged world, where his name, his actions, and his position already had real weight. As the conversation progressed, Bell began to better understand why his presence in the school district had caused so much discomfort. He admitted hesitantly that he had not been received with enthusiasm, and that there seemed to be clear resistance to his entry. Hearing this, Lily immediately realized that the negative feelings were not only directed at Bell, but also at the Hestia Familia as a whole. This realization made Bell apologize repeatedly, feeling the weight of being, once again, the source of potential problems for the group. To his surprise, Lily showed no concern. She explained that Hestia-sama and she herself had already decided to forego both the familiar recruitment and any invitations from the school district. The policy adopted was simple and straightforward. The Hestia Familia had no interest in competing for new members in that setting. Since Bell, an extraordinary adventurer, had joined the Familia, the faction's sudden growth had aroused suspicious and resentful glances among other familias that had struggled for years to establish themselves. Expanding further could attract unnecessary tensions, veil conflicts, and problems that went beyond the dungeon. As Lily frankly explained this reality, the atmosphere in the room was softened by the arrival of Ryu, who emerged from the kitchen to serve the dishes with precise and elegant movements. Her presence, aided by Makoto and Heroheim, brought an unexpected contrast between the delicacy of the moment and the weight of the discussion. Ryu, with a calm smile, commented that Bell seemed destined to cause a stir wherever he went, not through any fault of his own, but because he was marked as an exceptional adventurer. His words, spoken without irony, left Bell speechless, aware that his trajectory was already placing him on an inevitably different path. The conversation continued with more direct questions about the proposal itself. Bell wanted to know if there were precedents for adventurers becoming students in the school district, and the answer was disheartening. Such cases practically didn't exist. On the contrary, the common path was the reverse. Makoto and Ryu confirmed that they had never heard of anything like it, reinforcing the strangeness of the suggestion. Given this, it became clear that the idea had come almost exclusively from Hermes, which further increased the group's distrust. Welf was the first to take a firm stance, pointing out that there was no advantage in accepting and that the intentions behind the proposal were uncertain. Lily immediately agreed, highlighting that not even the guild had been informed and that accepting something like this could generate serious problems. Still, everyone ended up turning their gaze to Bell, awaiting his decision. The silence that formed at the table was heavy, laden with expectation and concern, as he reflected on the gods, their games, and the consequences of each choice. Before Bell could fully express what he was thinking, the scene shifted to another place. In a more private setting, Hestia and Hermes were face to face. Hestia sighed, clearly irritated, accusing Hermes of bringing confusion after confusion. He, in turn, calmly downplayed the situation, stating that there was no problem whatsoever. The contrast between the tension felt by Bell and his companions and Hermes' almost provocative nonchalance made it clear that the matter was far from resolved and that further developments were still on the horizon.